everybody asks, what's your coaching philosophy? And I don't know if I could ever say that I truly had a coaching philosophy. Like, why do you coach? And I'm sure that in this room we have a variety of answers to that question. I mean, some people, is it for money? Is it the fact that you are still competitive, that you play, that you want to give back, that you want to lead kids, I mean, there's so many things that we have to answer, and I think I've only been able to do that, I would say, after coaching for as many years as I have, in the last little bit. A year ago, I was the head coach of the Phoenix Suns on an interim basis, and I was trying to figure out the owner, because that's who I had to interview with to see if I could get the full-time job. And that's, if you know the owner of the Suns or you follow them, that was a challenge. But I talked to Steve Nash quite extensively, because he and the owner of the Suns don't really get along great, but Steve had a lot of great insight for me. And he said, you need to have your core values. And he said, what are your core values? Because the one thing that they do with this soccer team that they're owners of is they're big on what their core values are. And that really made me think, and that's how I kind of broke that down. And I was like, what are my core values? I need to know this. I'm going to apply for this job. And to me, that was a big thing for me. To figure that out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because I think that they can be who you are as coaches, and we're all going to have different ones. You're going to have different core values than I am, and you're going to have different core values than the person next to you, because a lot of it depends on who you are. My number one core value was compete, and I think at the NBA level, that's what it's all about. I'm competing against you because I want that position. We're competing for the championship. We're competing for within our division, and it's something that I have found in coaching and interaction with individual players, is that if you can help them be a little bit better because they're competing, they're going to want to listen to you, they're going to want to respect you more, and they're going to want to take what you can give them to become better. So compete for me is the number one, and it can be taught. All right, and it can be taught, and I think this was the key. Everybody says they can have core values, and you can go back to the old, Jack Donahue, who would teach us when we played for him that, you had to have something, and if you wrote it down, you became more committed to it. I don't think I'm telling you anything that you haven't already heard, but if you put it at some place where you can see it, if you tell people about it, and if you live it every day, and talk about it every day, then the percentage and the chances of you being able to have that become a reality are a lot higher. So when I talk about compete, Steve was like, I went back to Steve with my 5 core values, and he said, well, how are you going to implement them every day? Like, how are you going to, and I think the compete is an easy one, because you can teach how to compete through what you do, not in just individual drills. If I had the players out there, we would go and we would compete. I would put them in a position where, okay, we're going to do a shooting drill. You need to make 17 threes in 3 minutes, but it can't be from the same spot or the same side of the floor. And that would be a way to compete. If I was going to do it with 3 guys, we play a game where we shoot 5 spots, and you need to make 3 in a row to move to the next spot. If you miss, the next person goes. And it's a drill that we used to do in Portland all the time. And the players there, Lillard and McCollum and Batum at the time, and Wes Matthews, were all very proficient 3-point shooters, but it was like 3 in a row. So I'd have 3 guys up there. If you made 3, you moved to the next spot. If you missed, it was the next guy's turn. And then you had to make 3 around from 5 spots in a row, then 2 around, and then 1 from each spot, and you had to make all 5 in a row to finish. So it basically came down to 5 on the move for the last play. So everybody got caught up, but it was a competition. And I think that, you know, whether it's that, shooting drills individually or team, you can compete in team. We used to have, and I still think, you know, if you're doing a drill and there's no end result, especially in the NBA, that they're not into it as much as they're going to be if there's a win or not, if there's a chance to win the drill. We always do a three on two competitive drill, and we would have guys, one team on this side of the floor, one team on the other side of the floor, and if we did 3 on 2, it would be 3 guys coming in. And you know, over the years we've adapted that drill to make it more game specific. So can I get 3 guys just out here, please, and then maybe 2 on defense? You'll be coming this way. Now, we're going to start over here, all right? And again, everything that we try to do is based on what we're going to see in a game. And I don't think that in a game we're going to see 3 guys running down and 2 guys standing there. So one team would be over here. So you guys over here, and then you guys would be down here. We're going to bust out. And you guys can't run in until these guys get the basketball. And you have to touch the center circle with your foot before you go back. So already we're teaching a situation where guys are retreating, they're running back, they're trying to communicate and stop these guys from going down. So as soon as they touch the ball, you're allowed to come in. You guys can go down. I know you haven't stretched or anything, but we'll just go half speed. So they touch it, now you can go, and you got to get back, communicate, and try to stop. Good. Now, when we do this, we would have one more on this team coming in from the side, and he would touch the center circle after the ball crosses the center circle. So there's communication. We teach how to go opposite if you're the last guy back. Let's have one more come out, and we'll do it again. All right. So third guy comes in. You're going to only go touch the center circle when the ball crosses. First 2 guys can come in and play defense on the catch, all right, on the touch. You know, when you're doing this, one guy, you're going to declare a ball. You're going to, so that you can communicate who's got everybody. You're going to go opposite the ball so that we can get it. You guys have probably already done this. All right, so there's the catch. We go. You got to go. Goes opposite. Good. Now, so it's a fast break drill. We're trying to do it. Once this ends, the 3 guys that were on defense would be going back the other way with 2 coming onto the floor and the 3rd. You guys would fill out back to your own line. So anyways, thank you. You can have a seat. But we would play this game to 7 points. A foul would count as a point. And I love starting practices with this because they run, they compete, and over the years, every time you do something like this right off the bat, the level and the energy level in practice just goes sky high. So that's a compete. When the winning team, so we played a 7, when the winning team is finished, the other team has to do just a straight down and back. So there is a penalty for losing or a reward for winning. But we don't let guys stand there and watch. We don't let guys stand and watch guys run. So what they do is they work as a team. The team that won gets to have 1 guy on the free throw line, 3 basketballs, and they've got to make 5 shots before the other team gets down and back. So it puts a little bit of pressure on that. But again, everything is try to compete. So we, as coaches, break the game down. What we do now with the analytics in the game, and I'll talk a little bit about that more, but I was the Honey Badgers game the other night. It was 40 seconds to go in the first half, and it was a 4-point game. And I was with my nephew, and I said, this is an important 40 seconds, because you want to win the end of the quarter. You want to win end of quarters. And I think one of the things in the NBA now is that teams are really breaking games down into segments, and that has to be taught. How do you win that? There's the 2-for-1, and a lot of teams call it 33 because they want to shoot with 33 seconds. But in the game, the team that was down 4 came running down, and the guy tried to do something real quick, and he turned it over, and now it was 6 going the other way. They came down and missed a shot because the 33 or the 2-for-1 that they were looking for had been taken away. They came down, missed a shot, the other team came in, and instead of going in to a half where it could be 2 points or 4 at worst, they ended up going down 8 and ended up losing in overtime. But I said to my nephew, I said, that's where the game within the game and learning how to compete in that. One of the drills that we do for compete and learning how to finish, the Charlotte Hornets, the year before we got there was a big thing that they had lost 20 games that were within 5 points. You know, they're in every game, but they lose every game. So one of the things that we had to do was figure out how are we going to be better at end of game situations. Teams are going to trap Kemba. He's small. It makes it difficult for him to make passes out of it. But how are we going to do that? One of the games that we do, and one of the drills that you can do, is we call it 95-95. So you put 2 minutes on the clock, and the score is 95-95. And you ref it, and you play. And as soon as one team hits 100, the clock starts. So you get a chance for execution and playing a little bit of a scrimmage. So the game happens, and guy hits a 2, guy hits a 2. Guy comes down and hits a 3, that's when the manager starts the clock, and we know now we have a 3-point game with 2 minutes to go. So they learn clock management, they learn what they're trying to look for offensively, and you run plays. It could be 5, it could be a 5-point lead, it could be a 6-point lead if they hit 2 threes, but as soon as the team hits 100, and we would play that game over and over. Anyways, I think that making things competitive is huge. Dave Smart, who helped me with the national team for years, had even more competitive drills than I did. But if a ball is on one side of the floor, we had this offensive philosophy that if the ball's on one side of the floor and it came over to this side of the floor, and there were 2 guys here, one guy was in the slot, one guy was on the baseline, that one on the slot was going to be the cutter, and the shooter's going to come up because you're going to try to take the guy off the nail, and you're going to dive the guy to the basket, and you hope the weak side moves, and the bottom guy sees that the guy on the nail didn't see it, he steps in, and it gives your shooter a chance to space up. So it's just it was one of our philosophies. If you're attacking the basket and there's 2 on that side, top guy's in the slot, he's the cutter. So we were debating like, well, who's the cutter? And both guys were arguing, well, I'm a better shooter than you, so you should be the cutter. And we defined this with the Hornets. We say, okay, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, we want you to be the cutter all the time. So get into the slot. And Jeremy Lamb, we want you to be the shooter so you get to the baseline. On the national team, we were like, both guys were like, I'm a better shooter. I'm a better shooter. And Dave Smart said, well, when you shoot the basketball, so every drill that they did at Carleton, he said, we base it on what you practice. So if they shot 100 threes as a team, and they charted every day, and this guy was 43%, this guy was 48%, then that's how they did it. And I think that, to me, that was another great way where, okay, this is how you can get guys to, or girls to compete more, is that you chart things in practice, and you chart the number of shots made. And You know, now there's no debate. You want to be the, if it's you and I on this side of the floor, and you want to be the shooter, and I want to be the shooter, then we're going to go to the stats and we're going to do it. It's the same thing that we do with technical fouls. We go by percentage points, is what you, how you shoot. Quick note. I think I talked last year about the game and how the game is evolving backwards. If you were here last year, I talked about the three-point shot, and Mike D'Antoni brought it up because everybody's so into the analytics now. But the corner shot is, the corner three is like one of the best things you can do. I'll repeat it again later, but you know, number one is get fouled, number two is score at the rim, and number three is shoot the corner three. But the corner three now has become tough to get because the players are so athletic that they can get there. And there's an extra defender. As Mike would always say, there's an extra defender there, and it's the sideline. So 8 years ago in the NBA, if this is the NBA line, 4 feet beyond the NBA line, there were 900 threes taken 8 years ago. And now, this past season, there were over 4,000 threes taken from 4 feet beyond the NBA three-point line. 8 years ago, when there were 900, the percentage was 20%. That's what they shot. So you can imagine a lot of it might have been end of shot clock, shoot it up, and then maybe happens in it over the course of a year 900 times. Now, this past year, when there were 4,000 of them, they're shooting it at a 31%. So it's not ideal, but the best players in the game are shooting the ball from further away from the basket. And a lot of it has to do with spacing. I know of at least 5 teams in the NBA now that play and practice with a 4-point line. And a lot of it has to do with where you want to be for spacing so that you can step into it, but a lot of times as well, it has to do with, we're going to shoot the ball from this far out as well. With the Hornets, we have 4-point shooting contests because the range of the game, and the game has evolved that way. I mean, people are looking to shoot threes. The corner is suffocated with the sideline and the baseline, so players are learning how to shoot. I remember early with the Raptors, Lenny Wilkins would drop $100 on the floor, and guys would line up, and to a man, most of them would run and push it with 2 hands. And Vince Carter was the only guy that would shoot it. And now we see in the NBA, it is the jump shot for pretty much everybody. If you watch some of the routines, the Steph Curry routines, and the Damian Lillard, Lillard calls it the logo shot. They're shooting regular jump shots from that far out. And I think the game is evolving that way. I don't know at the level with which you coach if that's relevant or not, but shooting the basketball is the big thing, and the three-point line has changed the game. I can talk a little bit about shooting later. If I run out of time, remind me during the breakout sessions to talk about it. All right, that's compete. That was number one. The second thing is passion. And you know, I had the advantage of coaching our national team, and that was passion. That was passion. And I think it was the ability to, you're coaching your country, and you're competing against other countries, and you're at the top of what you do in your country. So that part of it was passion, and it was like the best. How do you create that? How do you create passion in kids? I think the biggest thing for us as coaches is that I've learned that every kid, even in the NBA, is different. And you've got to find the way or what the trigger is for that person. And if they have it for the game, you're off to a great start. I always said the guys that I love to coach and the guys that have been my favorite over the last like 17 years in the NBA. The guys that have been my favorite guys to coach would be the guys that if the commissioner came out today and said, that's it, the NBA isn't working, we're done, who would go and play pickup? Who would still go play? And to me, that's the passion, because you're not doing it for the money. You're not doing it because it's your job. You're doing it for the love of the game. What is passion? It's a desire to do amazing things. That's what it is. I learned a lot about it the year that I worked with the U.S. national team. I had this select group working with me, and in that select group was the next wave of great players in the United States. So Coach K would have LeBron and Kobe and all those guys in this gym. And I had the younger players in the auxiliary gym. And we were going to be Brazil one day, and then the next day we were going to be Argentina, and the next day we were going to play just zone, and we were going to get the main guys ready. And in that group was Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant and Kevin Love, and you know, obviously those guys made the transition over the years, but Kevin Durant said, I need to keep working on my game. Can we go back to the gym at night? So I was like, I don't know, I'll find out. And I asked Coach K, and he said, talk to Johnny Dawkins. I think he goes back every night with Kobe. And I said, okay. So I asked Johnny Dawkins, I said, hey, do you go back? He goes, yeah, we go back. We have a car pick us up and take us back. And we go back at 5 o'clock at night, and we're there for a couple hours. So I said, can we shoot at the other end? He goes, yeah, why not? So I think Jeff Green tags along, and so Durant comes in, and we walk into a gym like this, and Kobe is at the far end, and he is in full-on sweat, and he is shooting the ball, and you could tell he had been there for a while, and not one shot was a catch and shoot. Every shot was, I could imagine the defenders that he was playing against, because he was against nobody making these moves and these fadeaway jump shots and then sprinting after the ball and running back. And Kevin Durant did not take one shot. He stood at center court and could not believe what he was watching, and he watched it for 2 hours. And from that point on, that changed. I believe that changed even one of the guys who might be one of the greatest players now in the game. And I think Kobe was a guy that I didn't really care for a whole lot. I wasn't a big fan going into this. When I saw what I saw that night, and then I'm sitting on the bus, and he was in the seat. I was like the last assistant, and then the player said, so he's on there, and he was like, hey, Coach, what did you do last night? I said, well, I did a little bit of stuff on Brazil's zone because they play. He goes, yeah, and he named 5 guys off the Brazil team that were not NBA players. And I was like, holy smokes. And he goes, yeah, you know, I know what's going on. And I said, so I was like trying to make conversation now. So what did you do last night? And you know, we're in Vegas. And he goes, well, I went to bed like at 9:30. And I kind of went, oh, really? Yeah? And he goes, yeah, I go to bed at 9:30 because at 7 o'clock, my Pilates instructor knocks on my door, and I do Pilates for an hour from 7 to 8. From 8 to 9, I lift weights. At 9 o'clock, we have our team breakfast. At 10 o'clock, we have our team meeting, and then we practice from 11 to 2. He said, then I go back and I lie down for a little bit because I go back to the gym at 5 o'clock, which I had already known, and I shoot from 5 to 7. At the end of that, I'm pretty tired, so I get something to eat and I go to bed at 9:30 so I can get up and do the next. And I was just like, holy smoke. I was coaching Chris Bosh at the time, and Chris was on the team, and I said to Chris, I said, you see what Kobe does? This is his day. And I went through that routine. And he goes, yeah, he's crazy. Like, not, yeah, that's what it takes. And not, yeah, that's, but that is passion for wanting to be and acting upon being the best. And I think that shapes some of these other guys. I asked Kobe on the same trip, I said, hey, I saw where you just changed your number from 8 to 24. That's pretty interesting. Try to sell more jerseys? He just beady eyes looked right through me and said, no, 2-4 hours in a day. That's what it's going to take for me to become the best player in the world. And I'm like, okay, here's a guy that I didn't really care for a whole lot or like, and now I love this guy because I saw what he did every day, and I followed him. And the next 2 years, he wins an Olympic gold, an NBA championship, and he's MVP. And he had this dream and the desire and the passion, and you learn from that. To me, that was one of the things. So passion. I mean, and again, I think each player that you deal with, you have to find a way to get the passion. The third thing is respect. I think respect for the game, respect for officials, respect for your teammates, your opponent, other coaches. I used to hate other coaches on the other teams. I don't know why it was. I didn't like the guys I played against, so I thought when I coached against them, I can't like them. But I think over the years, I really grew to respect coaches. The NBA coaches, and I've said this for years, if I'm a coach somewhere and I can help another coach, that's why I come back to do this every time. I'm going to help you. I was a radio guy in Vancouver, just calling all the games on radio for the Vancouver Grizzlies. And Brian Hill said to me one time, anytime you want to come to a practice, you can come and you can watch practice. If you want to coach, you can sit here and you can watch. And included me in team dinners, which we would go and we would talk. And I just thought that was one of the neatest things. He had no reason to do it. He goes, I always want to try to help coaches. And I don't know many coaches that say no to other coaches about trying to help. I think there's a fraternity that we have and that we should take advantage of. So I think the respect for that. Jack Donahue always had the one thing, and he would talk to us about respect for your teammates. And he always said, if you're late for the bus, and you're 1 minute late for the bus, it's only 1 minute. He said, you're late for the bus. The bus said we're leaving at 5 o'clock, and you showed up at 5:01. And the guy said to him, Coach, I was only 1 minute late. It's 1 minute. And he said, yeah, but he said, it's 1 minute of his time, and his time, and his time. And he went through everybody else on the team, the managers, the trainers, the other coaches. He goes, no, that's 25 minutes of our team time. So only the 1 minute for you, because you thought something else was more important, takes 25 minutes away from our group as a team. And to that point, everybody was on time all the time. I think that's a respect that you have for your teammates. Again, this was a Team USA thing that Coach K had, was this here is a sign of weakness. Right? And I did something great, I'm number one. Well, this is the ultimate team sport. So Coach K would never allow this to happen. And I remember him pulling Lamar Odom up in a meeting one time at the World Championship in 2010. And he walked up to Lamar with his finger and he poked him. And he goes, here you go. How did that feel? Lamar, did you feel anything? He said, no. He said, yeah, because that's weak. He said, can you get down on the floor in this hotel room here, and can you do a push-up on one finger? So Lamar got down, and of course, he couldn't do it. And Coach K told the story that went longer than I'm going to go here, but he said, that's why basketball is such a great game. He says, because this is weak, and you can't do a push-up like that. But we have 5 people on the court. And when 5 people come together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now that's powerful. And he punched Lamar. He goes, did that hurt? He goes, yeah. And he goes, do me a favor, get down on the floor and give me push-ups on your knuckles. So he made a fist and he got down and he ripped off the push-ups. And he goes, see, there's strength in that. And he goes, so every time that we bring it in now, we don't have hands like this. We have a hand like this, and we're going to hold our fists together. And that's a sign of togetherness, and that's a sign of strength. So it's a small thing, but I think that was for me, a thing of respect. I think the last 2 things for me, I'll touch on. One is honesty. Honesty is a big thing. I think if you ever try to fool players, and especially at the league that I coach in, they see right through that. If we as coaches are figuring it out, they've already figured it out before. Like, they're out there, they're battling. If you tell them something that's not true or that's not right, and I think honesty is I've learned over the years that you can't sugarcoat things, you have to be straightforward. These guys want to hear it, it's what they do, it's their livelihood, and I think it goes almost in everything that we do in life as well. And the last thing, to me, is the word resiliency. And I think that we see that over the course of games, we see that over the course of seasons, over the course of a practice. And when you take these things and you put them all together and you talk about them every day, it makes it really easy in a timeout when the team is on a 10-0 run and you've called a timeout to bring everybody together and sit them down and go, okay, we talked about this before. This is where we need to be resilient. This is where we need to be able to accept the fact that they made a run, that we got 3 bad calls, that the referee didn't give us a break, but now how are we going to be resilient? How are we going to be resilient? Let's talk about the trip that we're going to take. We're going to go to China, and the food is going to be horrible, and we're going to travel for 18 hours to get there, and the hotel isn't going to be ready when we get there, so we got to wait in the lobby for 4 hours until the rooms are ready, and then we're going to play the next day. Well, hey, let's go. We knew this was going to happen. We've got to be resilient. We've got to be above this. And I think the more that you can be and talk about it ahead of time, the more it can happen. We had just another thing on, Dave Smart, who what he's done, winning the number of Canadian championships. We talked about resiliency. I had 2 of his players, and all these sports science people that come in now, when you wake up in the morning, they come in and they take a swab of your forehead, and they're going to check your omega wave, right? So it's your omega wave, and they would come to us and say, Coach, we can't really go hard today because the omega waves are down, they're fatigued from yesterday or whatever. Anyway, the sports sciences have all this figured out. One of the things that they do is they make you rate the practice. So how was practice today? And it was like 1 through 10, 10 being very, very difficult. So we're using this omega wave and we're ranking our practices over the course of the summer to see where we stand. And the 2 I'm mad, we're only going to practice 1 day. We didn't have a very good practice, so we did it. We had a 3.5-hour practice, and it was like running the whole time. It was as hard a practice as I could do. And we asked the guys, and the NBA guys, Tristan Thompson comes in, he goes, I'm exhausted. That was a 9. And other guys come in, Corey Joseph, I've never done anything like that before. That's a 7. And Phil Scrub and Tommy Scrub, who were at the practice, who played for Dave Smart, came in, and they go, 2. And I was like, no, come on. He goes, I was maybe a 3. I go, what? He goes, yeah, that's, compared to what we did at Carleton, that was nothing. And I was just like, holy smokes, no wonder you guys have been resilient over the years. Am I done? Yeah. I hope when Nathaniel Mitchell comes in, he works for us. We've done a thing in the NBA where we talk about the shooting part of the game. Like even Mitch, and we're talking, how do we get more shooters? How do we develop shooters? And there's 5 stages, and he did a great job of breaking it down. I think there's guys that can catch and shoot. All right, there's guys that can be on the 3-point line. And it's another level when you can be on the 3-point line and slide or run and move into a shot. Number 2, and if you have those, you have a spot. So, I mean, those are great. But then it moves where how many guys can shoot off the dribble? And I go back to my first couple years in Portland, and David Vanderpool, who worked with McCollum and Lillard as their individual coaches at the end of practice every day. I've never seen guys do it more, and I was always like, well, we got to shoot 25 threes before you leave, and you had to make 20. But those guys were always, he would always say, yeah, you do that once, but you got to do it with the bounce too. And that's a big thing in the NBA now. How many guys can shoot threes off the bounce? And if you think about it, there's not a huge number. Now, the great ones can. The great ones can. And Lillard and McCollum are two of them that have practiced it enough. So I hope Nate talks about that a little bit. Being able to shoot off the bounce. And then the next one is being able to sprint off screens from underneath, like on a pin down, and come up and step in to shoot it. And then the fifth way that only the great ones can do is be able to just shoot threes off your own. How can you create and shoot a three? And I think guys like Steph and James Harden, it's a very, very elite company. But catch and shoot, there's lots. Guys who can slide and shoot, a fewer. Guys who can do it off the dribble, even fewer. Speed off screens and shooting. So those are things that I think over and over, reps, and teaching people how to shoot the right way is important, but learning all the different ways to do it. Three things on offense. I mean, I've been, I guess, more of an offense thing. We do all the analytics, and I think watching games, I think sometimes they get too caught up. It's a 3-on-1 coming down the floor. I'm watching the Rockets, and I think it cost them, it was a key point in the game, and I think it was one of the things that hurt them in the series. They come down, it's a 3-on-1, and we got two guys that spray to the three, and they give it to one of them, and he kind of bobbles the pass and doesn't shoot it, and then swings it, and everybody's back, and they get nothing. If we're going to do the analytics, don't forget the order. All right? Foul is number 1. Rim is number 2. Three is number 3. And if you come down and you start looking, I think they overused it in Houston. I think that, and that play was a big part of it. You want good offense? You want good offense? And I just throw these over, change sides of the floor. I mean, it's a big thing now in the NBA. Points per possession goes up when you change sides of the floor. Points per possession goes up after paint touches. I mean, we do all the analytics. If it goes from one side to the second side, it's 1.2 points per possession. If it comes down and you get a paint touch to shrink the defense and kick, it's 1.2 points per possession. 1.1 point per possession is very, very good. So if those two things happen, why would you not reverse the ball every time or get into the paint every time? It's simple things. And then the big thing, and I work with James Borrego now, who is in San Antonio. The big thing that they talk about is 0.5, playing off the catch. When you get a catch, within half of a second, you either have to move the basketball or make a move to the basket, and if there's nothing there, move it again. So ball movement's a big thing. And then the last one I think is, it goes into the defense as well, but screen effectiveness. These are all 4 of those things are what we measure now analytically when we break down a game into an offensive possession. How many times did we change sides of the floor? Did we get into the paint? Did we set a good screen? And I think that, obviously defenses are, how can I play without getting screened offensively? How can I make sure that I make contact on screens? And that's something that has to be taught. You can just diagram plays and say, set a screen here. We got a ball handler has to use it to set his man up. The screener has to know how to set screens. If they're going to switch, where to hit, set on the ball side. If they're not, we got to make contact on it. Anyways, I think I'm running out of time. So thanks very much.